Hello. I have already talked about in my previous videos about marriage, love and factors which can lead to negation of marriage. Also I've dealt with issues like, how the sex drive, enhancement of sex drive, what problems it can lead to, what are the combinations which give you tendencies which are negative tendencies, and so on, so forth. Here I'm going to talk about Manglik Dosh. People are very much concerned about what is Manglik Dosh and the placement of Mars. In my last video I told that Saturn and Mars play a very important when they conjunct together, or when they aspect together as a conjunction or as two different planets. When they look at 7th house, Lord of the 7th house, or they look at Venus, they create problems in your married life. Saturn and Mars are together. Now I also told you that Saturn and Mars have their characteristics, where Saturn is slow, Mars is like a commander-in-chief, and they being together and looking at the 7th house or the Lord of 7th house or the Venus has its issues in delaying or creating problems in marriage. Now one of the very important things which we keep on saying in our kind of system is Manglik Dosh. If Mars is in the 1st house, 2nd house, 4th house, 7th house, 8th house, 12th house, that is we have 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, 12. Out of the 12 houses, if Mars is placed in 6 houses, it is a Manglik Dosh, and a lot of pundits and others tell you, run away, this is not the right place, this is not the right placement, it is going to create problems. Now, I'm not arguing with the fact that it is right or wrong. In my videos later, I'll keep on explaining you that exaltation and debilitation have no meaning. It is a planet behaves in a particular way when it is in a particular house, in a particular sign, and we should not get bogged into the concept of exaltation, debilitation, unch, neech, etc. In my other horoscopes, in my other videos, I'll explain that. But here I would like to explain you about Mars and briefly touch upon Saturn also. Okay, now Mars and Manglik Dosh. Now let's understand what Mars does. Mars is a fiery planet. It is a commander. It is a planet which tries to impose a kind of a process, a system. It's like a general, so it functions like a general. So whenever that generality which has that whole commanding in chief, the whole perspective of being a general in its own nature, it in various houses, people have said it creates problem. Let's understand if Mars is in the and I want to explain you also, logically explain you also that what does Mars do? Mars is also the ruler of our passion. It also makes you to get things. It's a go-getter. It makes you to make things happen. Now what happens if it is in the 1st house? If Mars is in the 1st house, it makes a person a little more aggressive. It wants that a person demands for its things. It wants things to be achieved very quickly, it's more firm. So people say, oh, if Mars is in the 1st house in a girl's horoscope, it's not good because she'll be aggressive, she'll be demanding, she'll be asking more. Now, is it right in the present context? I feel it's no. 2nd house, Mars, what does it do? When Mars is in the 2nd house, earlier days, there was a joint family system. So when it was a joint family system, then you have to be more adjusting, and lady has to move around with everybody in a particular way. Now again, if they say Mars in the 2nd house, it will try to impose itself. It will say that it has its own family, it has its own husband, why don't we stay separately, why don't we carve out a niche or something to that effect, depending on the placement of Mars. So it was not relevant during the older time. So they have said that Mars is not good in the 2nd house. Similarly, in Mars in the 4th house is for domestic, your house, where again a lady would say, okay, I want my house to be run in a particular way, which is again not convenient in your earlier days. Mars in 7th house would get you again a person who wants to have the partnership in a particular way, which would be more dominating, would be more aggressive, which would be more forthcoming, which will be more straightforward. Perhaps most of the ladies today, are like that, and we have all accepted that's a part of life. So does it make a difference? Mars in the 7th house? No. Mars in the 8th house. 8th house is the house of, say, to some extent it it takes care of the longevity of it's the second house in the seventh house, and obliquely second and seventh house govern the longevity of the husband. So Mars in eighth house also governs things like secret things, sudden troubles. It's eighth house governs things which are